Welcome back to Zen Customs. This week I'm going to be making some fan art. So a few years ago, my buddy came up with an idea for a Dungeons & Dragons campaign that basically revolved around all these knights, and each knight had a different color, and it was basically supposed to be like a just for fun, just kind of a comedy one, not a very serious one. So me and all my buddies got together and played it, and basically his idea was to record us playing it and then later animate along to it and just make it like a little comedy show, and he would put it up on his YouTube channel. So basically to start off, we just chose a color, and my knight that I played as was the red knight, and then we gotta basically come up with a character based around that, and basically just play out a regular D&D campaign. But the whole idea again was just to have fun, and because he was gonna record us playing, animate along to it, which is an idea that if any of you have ever listened to any Dungeons and Dragons podcasts, a lot of people will take the audio from those and animate little snippets of them on YouTube. And that was his idea, because he loves cartoons, and he always thought it'd be cool to make a cartoon TV show, or an animated TV show, excuse me. And instead of writing one, decided to just do this and just kind of animate along to it. So when we first started doing this campaign, one of the early on ideas was to have a pretty simple animation style, so he can, obviously the simpler it is, the easier it is, and he can animate it quicker. And again, it's just one guy doing all of it, so I ended up drawing up a little piece of art kind of what I was imagining for him. So this is what I drew for it. Again, just a super simple animation. Basically, they all have the same body types. The only difference is the helmet and a few tiny things. And so when I came to do this, which this is years later, and I should probably mention this, that he's completely changed the story. It's all scripted now, and it's way more serious, and he's gotten really into it. And the character designs are super detailed, and he still works on it a lot. But basically, I just wanted to do this. It was his birthday, so I wanted to sculpt this up just for fun, and decided to go with my original drawing because I don't necessarily have his design, so I thought it'd be cool to sculpt this up to show him basically what I had originally imagined the show to be like. And for any of you who've seen my other videos, you'll probably realize right off that it's not in my style at all. I'm a lot more realistic, especially like if you see my Minecraft videos, all those are basically taking the classic Minecraft mobs and making them realistic. So this was not in my wheelhouse at all, but it was really fun to try and get a new style and see how well I can do with it. I think one of the most important things throughout this video that I learned is symmetry, which is something I use all the time, but like with the more realistic stuff, if something isn't symmetrical, it's not that big of a deal, because real life, most things aren't symmetrical. But when it comes to a cartoon, like if one shoulder is a little bit different than the other shoulder, it's gonna look weird. So I tried to use symmetry as much as possible throughout the sculpt, and the farther in we get into the video, you'll see I don't stick to that. I change things up a lot, but I initially started with trying to make things as symmetrical as possible, just so it looked like an actual cartoon would. And as far as sculpting his underbody, which is gray right here but is black in the final picture, that was actually really easy because I'm not really focused on muscle or anything like that, which most of my sculpts are more revolved around that. I'm basically just trying to get the shape of a body, and again, this is supposed to be a highly stylized cartoon, so I'm not going to like really focus on biceps or calf muscles or anything like that. I'm basically almost want them to look like tubes that just kind of curve from one piece of the armor to the other, and just super simple. and I'm just gonna go over the characters as they come up. This character's name was Cobalt, I believe. So each character's name is basically just based off the color that they are. So Cobalt is a different shade of blue, so that's what he went with, and he's actually played by my buddy, the DM, the one that came with the whole story. He plays this character, and the Red Knight is the one that I played, and I believe his name was either Carmine or Crimson or something like that. Again, just a different shade of red. But when it came to the characters, we kind of got to come up with them ourselves. So like my character, I thought he's more of the soldier type. He's more probably the most serious one out of the group. So I thought it'd be cool to give him the kind of Spartan Roman helmet. I thought that would be a cool idea. And then when it came to this guy, my buddy's idea for it was a lot more like classic knight, and he wanted his helmet to look like a teardrop, which I thought was a cool idea because I never really seen that. And then he's from the northern part of the land, so you know they deal with snow and ice and stuff, so we gave him fur wrappings and fur on his kind of skirt area. Now this next character is green, and I think his name was Vert. I can't really remember exactly, but he's basically like the rogue, the sneaky guy, has the bow and arrow and all these things. So he didn't really, the guy that, or my buddy that plays him, didn't really have any specific design ideas for him, like helmet wise or anything, just that he's a rogue, so we thought it'd be cool to have a cloak. So that's pretty much all we carried over for him. And then this helmet, like you saw in the original art I did all those years ago, most of these helmets are pretty similar to what I drew back then. Some design changes are there, basically like as far as posing and stuff, because once I got all of them around in this table, I thought different poses worked better, but pretty much all the design is pretty similar to the original one. One thing that was actually weird about doing all these is when I sculpt all my other figures, I'll usually try and get the base mesh looking as good as possible, then I'll go in texture. But this, you know, I want it to be cartoony, so it was super simplistic. Like his cloak doesn't have a fabric texture going on at all, so that was kind of weird because I got so used to doing that, but I think it looked cool. And another thing I try to do is, again, I want it to look cartoony, so pretty much everything is this kind of matte texture, or not texture, but shader. It's called skin shade, and it's super matte and almost looks kind of like clay to me a little bit. It just I thought it was a really good choice for material for cartoon style. And then their armor is metallic, but like a super high reflective, kind of unrealistic metal, which, you know, goes well with cartoons because they're not very realistic. So this character is actually played by my brother, and his name is Mauve, or Mauve, I don't know how you pronounce it, but again, it's just another shade of purple. And his character is actually a king from the land he comes from, so, you know, hence the gold crown. And that was basically his flair as far as design, along with this gun, which wasn't something he chose. Like artistically, he didn't choose to have a gun. We were just playing the campaign, and the DM gave him a gun. Which again, this is obviously a fantasy world because these are all knights, but it was kind of a campaign we did for fun, and you know, we wanted it to be funny, so he gave him a gun. And I don't know if there was ever really a good reason for that or what, but just a fun thing. And I just wanted to add a little smoke, because in that original art I did, I had smoke coming out of the barrel like he had just fired a shot. One thing that I started doing here was kind of shaping the eyes, because originally I just had spheres for everybody's eyes, so they just look like circles. But after doing this guy, I felt like I could get more expression out of each character. Not that their pose didn't do a decent job, but going in and like with my guy, he was the more serious character in the group, so I gave him angry eyes, and I think that kind of helped give everybody more expression and make them look just make them look better overall. This guy was Amarillo, I think was his name. I don't even know if that's a shade of yellow, but I'm pretty sure that was his name. And his kind of artistic design flair was, he's an old guy and he had a beard, so he wanted a beard coming out of his helmet. Like, his helmet was too big, so they cut a hole in it so his massive beard could come out. And his character was more of like the smart one, and he was always trying to figure stuff out, and that's why he has these bags on his belt to store stuff. And then right here I'm sculpting up a little map for him, and I'm drawing on the map and gave a little X marks a spot, which doesn't really make sense because when we played this campaign, I don't think we were looking for treasure or anything, but I just didn't want the map to be empty, so I just drew in something for fun. And then this is the last character. His name was Persimmons, and he's the biggest character, but he's basically just the grunt of the group. So this wasn't really like a choice, having him be under the table. When they were playing the campaign, everybody had basically came up with the characters, and the Purple Knight, being the king, decided that like these guys would work for me because I'm the king, and the DM was like, yeah, that makes sense. So he basically, told Persimmons, you're carrying everything, you're doing everything I want. So whenever he would need a table to eat or anything, he would just yell for Persimmons to get on the ground, because he carried everything, so he always had this table strapped to his back. So he would just have him get on all fours, and then he would just sit up to a table, which I think when we played, all the table legs were broken, so the table had to be strapped to his back and he had to bend over like this. But that was basically just something that, as we played, one of the characters came up with, and we all thought it was funny and laughed, and then it became a big part of the story. And this kind of story was actually called Knights Around the Table, kind of like a riff on King Arthur's Knights of the Round Table. This is Knights Around the Table, and a lot of that kind of came from this original idea of all of us sitting around this table with persimmons under it, if I remember right. Again, we did this years ago, so I could be remembering things, but from my memory, that's kind of how the name came about. And now here I'm just sculpting up some hands, because I have one mesh that goes throughout the whole body. There's basically all the black you see on all these knights is just one mesh, so it was kind of hard to pull hands and fingers out of it. So I just went ahead and cut their hands, which were just basically blobs, off, and added new hands. And some of them you'll see, like Mauve here, his hands were actually pretty good, so I just reposed them and made them look a lot better and cleaned them up. But with some of them I had to just cut them off and add new hands in. That's pretty much the whole sculpt right there. Just finishing up a few things as far as hands and adding in the base, and I'll throw some pictures up here. So here's my old drawing again. It's not very good. I didn't spend much time on it, and again, this is a very old drawing. But here's the finished sculpt. I'm super happy with it. Again, this isn't really my style, so I probably won't do much things like that or like this again. But let me know what you guys think. If you liked it a lot, maybe I'll try some. I also want to mention that I just found out today I reached 100 subscribers, so I just want to say thank you to everybody that has subscribed. Super appreciate it. I love making these videos and doing YouTube. And, obviously the more subscribers, the better. So I just want to say thank you to everybody that's subscribed or that watches my videos or anything like that. And lastly, I just want to mention my Instagram and my Etsy account. Those are both called Zane Customs as well, and I'll have links down below if you want to check those out. Anything you see me sculpt up here on YouTube, you can buy off my Etsy account, with the exception of this sculpt here, just because, again, this is my buddy's pet project, so I don't want to intrude on that at all. But any other videos you've seen, you can buy sculpts of those on my Etsy account. And again, thanks for watching, thanks for subscribing, and I'll see you next week.